Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse here on the Bible Forum. It is Sunday night, the first Sunday in October, October 7th, 2018. We know that Western civilization is divided largely between Europe and the United States. Now, Europe has never really been all that the United States has been and is, both spiritually and morally. But now, over the last 70 years, the United States has been defining deviancy down. In so doing, we got a lot of names for it. We've got a lot of reasons for it. We've got some solutions for it. We complain about it, but it is all the same. Whatever it is, it's about mocking God. It's our attempt at mocking God. But you see, the Bible declares that such things are not possible. It is impossible to mock God. God will not be mocked. Case in point, increasingly we're seeing news reports of women who have been sexually molested by evil men. It happens at work, it happens in the home, it happens on the street. And often we're not told exactly what they did. We're not given the context in which it occurred. It's simply that he did it, and it's a crime. And the message we are being given from all of this is that women are vulnerable, often innocent victims, and men are brutal aggressors. Women are out there simply trying to make a living. And while they're doing that, men are taking advantage of them, taking advantage of that and of them. This particular article is stimulated by yet another woman, a wife, who has gone missing with a distraught husband begging her to return. No one who knows her believes that she would simply leave her children. You remember the last time this happened? They found the children, they found the wife, all dead. He killed them and told this story. Is this another of the same? We don't know. But this is the way these things are set up. So we all know that men are naturally stimulated by the female form. They just have to see it. We all know that contemporary fashions feature the female form, often with a little peeky-poo. The culture encourages girls, young girls, to feature their forms. The music, the popular music, drives sexual desire. And if it's not doing that, it's at least stimulating emotions. Movies, TV shows, books, tweets, and so forth are dominated by sexuality. And my experience is that women are generally not aware of how their behavior stimulates sexuality. Often just being friendly. They don't get it. Now, I know there are women who get it, and they work it for their own benefit, but I'm just saying, 8, 10, 12, 14-year-old girl often doesn't get it. We know that men are pigs, and we know that young men are piglets, and pigs and piglets do what pigs and piglets do. When women enter the world of pigs, they have to know that things can happen. But more and more, women are naive. Even among the worldly wise, they don't get it. Years ago, I'm talking in the early 70s, 1970s, not 18, I watched a neighbor woman forced to go to work when her husband's business was ruined by the county. The county was widening a road, and right in front of his restaurant, they hit a sinkhole, and a telephone pole fell in the hole, and everything collapsed, and it took them 2 months or more to figure out what to do and get it fixed. And every day, that restaurant owner had to prepare a certain amount of food in case somebody came. He eventually went bankrupt. So this housewife, mother of two, went to work. She worked in an office. And I gathered from the conversation she worked for a particular man, a boss. She was a secretary. And I had noticed that she dressed very nicely. And she was an attractive woman. She smelled good. And she purposed to get into the office early enough to make coffee before the boss arrived. She catered to his wishes, both in terms of work and personal, answering the phone or running errands or doing or whatever it had. She anticipated his needs, anything a good secretary would do. But after several months of this, she confided in me that this man was taking liberties, sweet-talking her. Not overtly, but inappropriately touching. And caring about her, demonstrating his concern. And here she was in her mid-30s, mid to late 30s, she was conflicted, both at her boss's behavior and the fact that her husband didn't do any of this stuff. And underneath, she liked the attention she was getting from her boss, but she knew it was wrong. Now fast forward 57 years. In a culture that has decided men and women are equal, women are being abused, largely because they have not been taught who and what men really are. The music videos, the TV, the movies have painted a picture of sex-charged men as something virile and good, great. Do the women not get it? Or are they simply compartmentalizing everything? I know women who think men are just like them, only with more muscles. And they tend to be shocked and offended when that man acts like a man. And of course, in all of that, it's the man's fault. To criticize a woman for dressing in a suggestive manner or being playful in a work environment or suggestive in a dating environment is, well, sexist. But sexism is real, and it gets played both ways. Only in the Bible are we warned about these things. The culture, the society, even the education system ignores reality. They want to put boys and girls in the same lavatories at school. Lavatories that have specially designed stalls that the walls reach all the way to the floor, and the children can lock them from inside, so that the teacher who's in the lavatory to make sure nothing untoward happens can't see what's going on in there. Does that make sense to you? It sure does to somebody. Only in the Bible are we taught the true meanings of sex and morality. And of all the books in the world, it's the Bible that we dare not live by, even in the church. Just look around. How many Bible versions are there? And why? In the English-speaking world, why do we need more than one? There are currently 950 by one estimation. And of course, the variances are defined in terms of readability. This one's more readable, or this one's more contemporary in its language. There are Bibles that have been created out of the liberalism that has attacked the church in the last 50 to 100 years. True to the original languages is the more intellectual reason for the differences. But the truth is that every Bible version that's on the market exists to change the way you view God's Word. A few have managed to actually capture that sentiment in valuable ways. But most of them simply exist to make money for the publisher. They're all copyrighted. The King James Version is one of the few, if not the only one, that isn't copyrighted. And most are actually corrupting God's Word for nefarious reasons. Why? Because human beings naturally hate God. Human beings naturally hate everything He stands for. Yeah, even the preachers. Have you seen how they live? The human heart, the prophet Jeremiah said, is deceitful. Well, how deceitful? Deceitful above all things. And it is desperately wicked. How wicked? It is more wicked than anything you can imagine, he says, under the inspiration of the Spirit of God. When you watch the news and you see all the hateful, disgusting, and truly sad things happening in a once decent culture, you're seeing what happens when that culture rejects God. In the past, Americans gave God lip service. That lip service, weak as it was, kept us safe. That lip service built solid families and a solid society, all of which is now gone. Today, every religious sentiment is equally valid. And if you don't think so, you're the problem, sweetheart. So what happens when you put a fox in the hen house? Or when you put a hen in the fox den? You say, oh, we're not animals. No, we're not simply animals, operating according to instinct and desire. We are sentient creatures, made in the image of God. We know better. But the question is begged, do we? Are parents teaching objective morality today? I would argue they're not teaching much of anything, except how to live the way they're living by watching and seeing it. The average parent today is oblivious. Are parents parenting children? How many hours do parents and children spend together today? Not counting sleep time, which is about 60 hours a week. Not counting school time, which is at least 35 hours a week with travel. Not counting when parents are at work, which is 50 hours a week, counting the commute. Or when they're shopping or running errands or, you get it. We're talking about maybe 4 hours a day that parents and children maybe could spend together. And assuming the children want to be with their parents during these hours, there still isn't very much transfer going on. Children are observers, and they observe that parents just don't care about them. So what kind of parenting is taking place? What sort of imprinting of basic values or even individual values is taking place in the majority of our homes? Children are quick to learn. They learn all sorts of things. But one of the things they will quickly learn is that their parents have their own life and we have ours. Parents have their values, we have ours. And quite frankly, ours is better. When those children reach adulthood, they go out into the world, what do they expect? Well, they expect to be able to live their own lives the way they did at home. They expect to be able to play however they choose safely. They expect to be able to express values indigenous of, well, themselves. They're not stupid. They know how to live. But look around. Clearly they don't. The subtle, heretical, because we refuse to admit it, message is clear. Women are not safe around men who have no objective moral values. And the moral strength to live out those values when nobody's looking. So in a workplace dominated by men, women are at risk. In a co-equal workplace, women are at risk. Are men and women equal? Only in the eyes of the law. Men clearly are larger, stronger, and overtly oriented toward sex. They have to be trained not to express it. And women are still the weaker sex and vulnerable in any environment that contains uncontrolled men. We used to recognize this and act accordingly. Today, we're just interested in being equal. We are sacrificing being safe. I went into the workaday world out of high school in 1961. I have run into very few people in the last 10 years who know anything about 1961. My first job was in a glass house, anchor hawking. And I remember, 18-year-old kid, I remember how shocked I was to see how the women were acting around men. I was equally shocked to see how the men interacted with the women. Lots of sexually charged joking, even a fair amount of touching. And the women did not seem to be outdone by the men. That was 57 years ago this month, October. All I can say is we've come a long way, baby. The culture at large has become overtly crude, rude, and indecent. You are aware of how our senators and representatives are acting today, right? Men and women charged with the most important jobs in our nation. Men and women who know the law and have sworn to uphold it. Men and women apparently willing to abandon both that law and civility in the face of the greatest threat to civilization yet. A man who would sit on the highest court of the land, who actually believes in objective truth and biblical morality. We can't have that. At stake is whether or not a woman has the right to kill her unborn baby, a baby she conceived without regard to the consequences of her actions, a baby she could have prevented with just a little self-control and forethought. But the message today is, I'm free. I can live any way I please and not reap the reward of my actions. And anybody who tries to take that away from me, well, they're the enemy. And the Bible? What about the Bible? One of the most hated verses in the Bible is Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. verse that says, whatsoever a man or a woman sows, that shall he also reap. And the context for this, God is not mocked. He will not be mocked. Today he is patient for a purpose. One day he will be the judge of the universe, and it will be an unbiased court. We will get what we deserve. Some of us who call ourselves Christians will get what we don't deserve. Heaven. And everybody else will get what they deserve. And reading what that is in the Bible, I have to believe that everybody will be shocked out of their socks. An eternity with no appeal and no relief. I can't imagine such a thing. And most people can't. But the God haters, the God deniers among us, they say it must not be true because I can't imagine it. They have become their own gods. And we're heading downhill from there.